Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nessie. The House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. I discuss technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and I share tools and tips that you can hear today and use tomorrow. You're going to hear the stories of teachers, leaders, and creators just like you. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way you teach and how your students learn. Good evening, good evening, good evening. It's been a long day. Welcome to the night 2. There we go. We're going to call this night 2 of the FETC replay show. My name is Chris Nessie. Many of you may know that already. I appreciate you coming out here tonight as we talk about FETC Day 2. And certainly, if you haven't figured out, again, much of the conference, if not all of it, it's all pre-recorded sessions. So it all kind of blends together. So if you weren't able to be active yesterday, you could be active today. And if you can't be active today or tomorrow or even Friday, the quote unquote dates of FETC, it's all good because it's available for 30 days after you're done. Well, after Friday. So poke around. Definitely. You want to follow the hashtags for sure that relate to FETC this year. Let's see if I'm going to look at TweetDeck real quick. The hashtags that you probably want to follow are hashtag FETC 2021, hashtag FETC 21, as well as hashtag FETC and FETC chat. So certainly there's a lot going on social media around FETC this year. If you're joining me wherever you are in the world, in the country, make sure you say hello on the chat wherever you're watching. This is being live streamed to YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And if you want to jump aboard and have a conversation and chat it up, you can go to chrisnessie.com/join. That will be scrolling down below on the screen. You don't need to necessarily have your camera turned on. It's okay if you just want to come in with some audio. That's perfectly fine. I had another long day being a high school social studies teacher and got to spend some time on my lunch today and a little bit of time after school, further poking around and, checking off some different types of sessions that I'm interested in. And again, for me, what I'm interested in is learning about technology, and I want to bring tools into my classroom. Again, I'm a high school social studies teacher, if you're new to who I am. And I want to put things in the hands of my students and help my colleagues to, be creators of content, be better communicators, collaborators, and ultimately critical thinkers. All right. So that's my goal. All right. Checking in on chat as these come in. I'm certainly going to shout out people who are engaged and participating. Good evening to Alex Podchaski. He is in Florida. He is a tech director, hanging out yet again, this time working on a bunch of things in the background. All right, Alex, thank you for, stopping by. Certainly, you're a good guy. And if you don't know, Alex is one of the founders and moderators of EdTech Chat, hashtag EdTech Chat. Alex, if you want to drop the time in there, but I'm pretty sure if people are watching my live stream and they attend FETC, they know the deal with hashtag EdTech Chat. But let me know where you're checking in from, where you're coming from, what your role is in education. And certainly the purpose of me getting on here and doing these live streams is to not always look at the camera because I've got the monitors down here and, things like that. But I want to amplify your voice. So if you're attending FETC and there are sessions you've attended, what did you learn? What will you bring back to your school or your district? If you're like me, again, a classroom teacher, and you're attending these sessions, you're not the one who is, controlling the money, let's say. But what are you going to recommend to your supervisors or your assistant superintendents? What are the cool toys out there that are going to enhance education and learning? Oh, we got Mel A checking in, and she asks, what is FETC? Oh, real quick, let's go back here. Alex reminds us, and here's your little on-screen promotion. EdTech Chat is Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Twitter. Alex has a great crew. They always have great conversations on there. And for as passionate as I am about education technology, I don't seem to get into EdTech Chat as much as I probably should. So I need to be more intentional about that. But for Mel A, who has checked in on a number of live streams that I've done, she hung out on the ISTE live streams, and we're connecting and talking even more on Twitter since then. But FETC, again, is the Future Education Technology Conference. The great Doug K. Konopelko, also from Florida, also in and out tonight. He presented at FETC, has had a great experience. I believe Doug also works for CDW, which is, I don't know, at times it feels like it's the only place that you can buy stuff for your school. So they've certainly put themselves in a good position from a business standpoint when it comes to supplying technology and all sorts of stuff for schools and districts, not only in this country, but around the world. And I guess he's using the wrong YouTube account, which is okay. It's all good. We're just here to talk education technology. And again, what are you learning? As I'm chatting here with you, again, technology never works as fast as you want it to when you need it to. So I want to make sure that I have the conference site up. And I wanted to talk about some sessions that I identified that I was interested in. I know there were a number of keynotes today. Former principal and New Jersey Administrator Eric Scheninger was a prominent speaker today. His presentation is one that I will definitely go back and check out. I'm always curious what Eric has to say about education. Mel, you haven't attended FETC. Well, you can this year because it's virtual. Go to the website, fetc.org, and you can register. They're accepting registrations up until Friday, and then you get access to all of these sessions for the next 30 days after Friday. So if you can't necessarily dive into the content and learning this week, you'd have a month, but you got to get registered, I believe, before Friday. Jennifer Wombley was here last night in the chat, and she pointed out some stuff for sure. Stephanie, yeah, I think you can still register. The videos will be live after Friday. I mean, they're there now, but I guess you needed to pre-register before this week to get access to it now, and then I guess they'll open it up even further. I don't have all the details. Just a guy with a microphone. All right, let's get into the site and what was I looking to be a part of. I know there was a lot of buzz around the keynote from Dr. Lisa Williams earlier today. So I know her keynote is still available, and the title of her keynote was Advancing Equity During the Challenges of COVID, Staying Focused on What We Can Do. Let me share the description of that, because that's a powerful title. Expand that out. All right, let's see. So this keynote is led by Dr. Lisa N. Williams. The global pandemic has created unprecedented challenges across the world. Loss, disconnection, and instability are just a few of the common experiences this traumatic moment has caused for us all. What are those critical considerations about equity and access that we should be having? What are the actions Oh, sorry. What, yeah, I can read. Trust me. What are the actions essential to advancing access for our most marginalized students? How do we transform our institutions to respond to all that we knew and have learned? These are a few ideas that we will examine as we consider the ways we can stay focused on the work to make a difference in the lives of our students and communities, especially now. Doug shares in the chat, her keynote was really, really strong, a great voice in equity and how that work impacts education and our students. I live the dream every day. All right. So we all have a role to play, whether you're a classroom teacher or a principal or a superintendent or, the tech guy. We all play a role in making education better. And again, so much of our society, not to get on a soapbox, and I don't think I'm going into the world of politics and things I shouldn't speak on, but if we focus on what we're doing in schools and, the types of citizens that we are, producing and what we're empowering our students to do, that's what's going to change the world. That's where the change is going to happen. It starts when 4 and 5 year olds step into school for the first time. Has nothing to do with the technology. And yes, I know this is the House of Ed Tech, where education technology is, the sword I will, die on, so to speak. But it's not about the technology. It's never been about the technology. Do we want to have students with the most equal possible access to strong, fast internet? Absolutely. But not just students. Everybody should have access to that, right? When we talk about the actions essential to advancing our most marginalized students, yeah, we're focused on school. And if we focus on our marginalized students, we're focusing on marginalized groups of people. Typically the marginalized student would be the children of marginalized people. And if we can make life better and empower those students, that will start to change the world, I think. But what do you think? We could certainly, again, this was a very powerful keynote today. So, what are your thoughts on some of these questions posed in this keynote from Lisa Williams? All right. If you want to hop aboard, we can talk about equity in education, what we can do as teachers, how technology plays a role in this. I've started to share my thoughts, but if you want to bounce your thoughts and come aboard, again, don't need to have your camera on, but if you want to have your camera on, that's totally cool. Just go to chrisnessy.com/join, and I will drop that in the chat. Just know that coming on here it's kind of like calling into a radio show where you do need to either mute YouTube where you're watching this or wherever you're watching it, or close it out while you are in here live with me. But there's a link if you want to hop aboard and be a part of the conversation. Why not? It's a brisk, chilly Wednesday night here in New Jersey, which is where I am located. It's 10:14 in the evening, and, we can go from there. I guess I should have been ready to insert like a commercial or something. I don't have a commercial though. While I'm pulling some stuff up, there you go. I'll keep yapping. If you're not aware, House of Ed Tech is a podcast, and my passion is education technology, and the House of Ed Tech is for teachers, leaders, the creators of the technology, and I use that podcast to tell their stories and give my points of view on education technology. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can go to chrisnessy.com/go on your podcast listening device, and that link will help you to subscribe. All right. I want to keep this open so I have these questions. but I also want to see the other sessions that I was interested in. So that's what I have to do. And again, if you haven't let me know that you're here, again, say hello in the chat. Let me know where you're checking in from. I like to see how far I can reach. I come. All right, let's get back to the agenda. And we can also talk about, what sessions you are interested in, because I know some of the stuff comes live later, like tomorrow and Friday. But what are you looking forward to? Why are you attending FETC? Yeah, this is Doug checking in. Using StreamYard? Absolutely. It makes it too darn easy to live stream. It's also one of the few things that I'm willing to pay for, because those who know me know free is my favorite 4-letter F word. But yeah, this is StreamYard, and that's how I'm streaming out to Twitch and Periscope, Twitter, and also here on YouTube. But yeah, love StreamYard. Used it in the spring when my district did not provide guidance on what to do. Yeah, I could have run Google Meets, but I chose to do live streaming like this, private live streams, because I knew that my students understood what YouTube is. All right. So, Doug, dive in. Go to chrisnessy.com/join. Have your first StreamYard experience. Using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try. All right. If you happen to be watching on your phone, you can join on your phone. Pretty sure it's Safari friendly on an iPhone, Chrome friendly on the Android side, which means it could probably work in Chrome the other way as well. All right. We have a caller. Alex in Florida, you're on the air. What's up, man?
Hey, I wasn't going to let you sit there all alone again.
I appreciate that. It's like when a student decides to engage with a teacher.
Yes, or turn on their camera.
Yeah. So what's going on? How you doing?
I was just going to jump in because we did a whole ed tech chat on the whole equity thing a week, not this past week, not Monday, but a week ago. And a lot of the discussion came back down around really putting the relationship back into the teaching model. While it'd be great to be able to push all the technology to everywhere, not everybody's going to get it, and there's always going to be times where it still fails. But when you base the learning process on that relationship, and you're teaching the skills and not the content, you end up creating much more of the equity than you would if you outfitted everybody with high-speed internet and 3 devices to 1 kid, and the count of the technology or the access of the technology isn't what gives the equity. It's the ability to use it and the ability to have that relationship to understand the interactions. That really is what the driving, when we were doing it, that was our driving sort of our driving principle as we got through the chat.
So more focusing on the skill, making sure students acquire skills.
Right. It's the oft debated, the fence is in the way. Do you give everybody a crate? Do you give different people different numbers of crates, or do you remove the fence? Like the giving everybody a device is adding crates and everything else. Removing the fence is giving them that relationship and giving them that the skill sets, so that they know what they're looking at. They know where they're going. They know what the access is. It doesn't matter that at that point. Then it doesn't matter how many devices they have or which device they have or which software you're using. You've created the environment where they understand what's going on, and every student then gets to sort of participate and be in the learning process at the same way, which is really the goal.
You know, Alex, that's very, very profound, because for those who maybe you haven't picked up on the imagery, but when we talk about equal, Alex is talking about that picture we've all probably seen with, you know, the three different sized people of different heights trying to look over the fence to see something. And, you know, equal is giving them all one box, and still you're going to have inequity. Making it equitable is giving them what they need to do it. But what you just said, I had never considered, and that was get rid of the fence. So how do we get rid of the fence?
To me, we have right now, to me, the COVID presents the perfect opportunity. We've got everyone waiving test scores. We've got everyone waiving requirements. We've got, we no longer are talking about time in seat for classrooms, because you can't do it. All the models that we have are broken. And they're broken for safety reasons. It's good. Like, we're breaking them for a good reason, but we don't have to put them back. We don't have to put them back exactly the same way. It's like saying, we have a retention lake on our campus. And they've been doing some remediation work and changing the how it slopes, how steep the banks are. And literally overnight, from last night to this morning, they removed all the fences because they're almost done with the project. And that's why I was thinking of that, and now the imagery, because all of a sudden something that was blocking my view of across the campus was now instantaneously removed. And I forgot how much was blocked and how much my perspective had changed because the fence was there. So
I wrote this down. I wrote down, how do we get rid of the fence? And I think this might be the new flag I need to carry and, wave into battle as an educator. So to you and everybody in the chat. So it's one thing. So maybe I jumped the gun here with how do we remove the fence, but in this metaphor, what is the fence? What is obstructing us when it comes to, now, are we just talking about education technology and getting access to the skills, or are we bringing in other things to make education better? How big do we need to go? How big do we want to go with this?
I think it goes as big as we're willing to challenge. I mean, in some cases, you start small, where it is just getting access to some better tools or other things. But I think people and take a look at it from the level of access that you have in your district. So if you're a teacher, the best thing you could do, or the most power you have to change that access and to change that and remove that fence, is to make sure that in your planning, in your preparation, in your pedagogy, as you are working to teach the students, don't focus on, yes, we have to focus on content. There's still, the tests are going to come back, unfortunately, unless, again, we move this up the chain. Teach students. If you teach all your students, not necessarily, and it sounds really controlling, but how to think, the process of, my background is engineering and physics. If you teach the scientific process, if you teach the design process, if you teach design thinking, you can step through any problem or any question that you have. And you've given now students a set of tools that they can apply to every situation that they have. You're not asking, there's still, again, you're a high school teacher, we're dealing with a little bit more of the advanced concepts. There still has to be the memorization of the alphabet, the memorization of some math facts, the memorization of certain things. But there's a crossover point somewhere in middle school where we need to teach them the how to think, the how to solve problems, the how to approach things, how to verify information. It's all I want to call it the ancillary things that we give them as part of digital citizenship, or as a lesson inside of our science classes. And it's those means of analysis that the teacher can start with. And then as you move up the chain, if you're a building administrator, you can get your teachers to all be using pedagogies that engage the students and meet the students where they are. And if you're at the district level, the superintendent gets to engage with the rest of the community. And then they get to start arguing for how we're going to make those arguments. And then you go all the way up through, I'll go through union reps, through state departments of education. We need to question the 180 days of school. We need to question the 900 hours of instruction, because that's how the states are measuring things, and that's how we do our funding. We can't just continue to say this is what we have. It's broken now. We have an opportunity. We almost have an obligation now to sit down and say, is there a better or different way to do this? And we're going to be in this realistically. We're in this for a minimum of another 6 months. If not, if things go, variants happen and everything else, we could be doing this again for another year. If we're doing this again for another year, we really have to throw out seat time out the window, because we don't have an opportunity. We're not going to get our kids in school for 180 days. Like, it's just not going to happen. They're not going to physically be there. So what do? We're not going to be able to continuously throw out the testing results, because we're going to have to measure things. So what other means can we use to measure? What other valid, research-driven, result-based things can we do? People have done portfolios. You can go for the mastery concepts. You could do a whole lot of different things that nobody tries, because everything is tied to seat time and test scores. Those are almost gone now. We have an opportunity. We need to take advantage of it. I'll get off the soapbox now.
that Alex, I applaud everything you said, but the problem though is, if we're, and I'm sure I've said this to you in the handful of times we've been in the same place at the same time, but I will say till the day I'm retired, because I don't want to be dead, so I'll just say retired.
Yeah.
When we measure seat time, we are measuring the wrong end of the learner.
Yep.
That goes for students. That goes for teachers, where, we have our required PD and, our the hours that we have to attend, and, our contractual time and things like that. When we use the clock to measure, the clock should only be used to measure time and speed and, in athletics. All right. But you're right. We are at a crossroads. Everything that's happened in the last 18 months, let's say, has shined a light, not just in this country, but all over the world, all the issues and problems that these aren't new problems in education. But like you're saying, we have the opportunity to change things. And the other thing that and I don't like to use the word hate a lot, but the other aspect of education I hate is the idea or the notion that that's the way we've always done it. Sorry, that's BS. And when that's one of the reasons, you're wrong. And I don't care what you're talking about. If you're going to default to, that's the way we've always done it, there can be no other way. Our blinders are just so comfortable where we can't see left or right. That's a problem, because it's a huge contradiction. It's adults talking out both sides of their mouth, because you've got teachers who maybe subscribe to what we're saying that we should change, that are trying to tell their kids and their students to be creative and think differently and, put yourself outside the box, when the people who make the decisions, all they're trying to do is fortify the box that they are stuck in.
Yeah. One of the things that, I want our lives to be able to be open and free. But the phrase that worries me the most about all the things that are going on now is, I want things to go back to normal. Well,
I hate normal. I hate normal.
Yeah.
Doug drops here in the chat. Best thing that he's heard about this is from Mitch Resnick at the MIT Media Lab. And he says, we measure and assess what's easiest to measure, not what we value. Yeah, I guess that's why we standardized testing is in math and reading. That's the two low-hanging fruits of subjects we can test, right? And it's the easiest thing to give multiple choice because A, B, C, D, or E, one of them is going to be the right answer to the math question, right?
Yep.
We can design multiple choice questions around language arts, okay? And I guess occasionally you can infuse other subjects, but I mean, let me just say this. Thank God there's no standardized social studies test that kids have to, take and pass. I joke that, maybe at some point all students should have to take and pass the citizenship test, not to get their citizenship, but to take the test as part of their civic learning, just to kind of bring that into schools. And I have done that before. I've given, samples of that to US 1 students who are learning about government and the foundations of our country. And just to kind of give it to them and say, this is what a lot of people, are willing to die for, to come here and take this test and, get that citizenship. And that kind of makes it real for some kids to realize that it's out there. And I guess Doug is also saying that there is standardized social studies testing in Florida. So sorry to hear that. And my pal Fancy Lancy checking in. Yes, we learn, we grow, we adapt. I will certainly say, and I'll keep that up there for a second, I think we're all trying to do that, but Alex, you and I both know there are people out there who are not about growing and adapting and learning. They want to go back to the way it was. It was comfortable. Okay. But I'm sorry, that's the wrong nostalgia. Good nostalgia is thinking that the 1950s were wonderful. Sure. Were there issues? Yeah. But that's the good kind of nostalgia. I do not long for the nostalgia of, education in I can only speak for my own experience of the late 90s and the, 2000s as I went through college and, got into education. Right. I wish I was a student now. Right. I think I would thrive so much better as a student now with the different tools and just the intent. I mean, when I was in high school, nobody cared what I thought for real or was concerned with, was I getting value? It was, take the test, get the grades. Where did you behave? Right. It was very much the factory model.
I wanted to be a rocket scientist so bad, but things like Space Camp was a movie. Like it was real, but it wasn't real. You had to travel all the way across country to actually try and attend if you were lucky. There weren't robotics competitions. I'm old enough to remember there was no internet. It was dial up everything. It was CompuServe and AOL. The access, the stuff that I have sitting within 5 feet of me right now that my kids get to play with and get to learn with is beyond things that I had in college. Like I went to engineering school. I worked in engineering labs. I remember the first 3D printer that we got that was resin powder based. That was a $15,000 machine. Now I have I have kids that live in our residential dorms on our campus who have them in their rooms. Like that we're talking, 25 years later, it's almost commoditized to the point where they can design things in their room that took me entire lab spaces with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of computer equipment to start with. It's just phenomenal. But again, but it's not about just that access. Like it's about giving them that inspiration and keeping the barriers out of their way.
And I think, again, I am on board with, we need to eliminate the barriers, the speed bumps, the fences, whatever imagery we want to create. But I think where we can kind of pull back is some of the demands we put on students and how so much of their life and their time is so micromanaged. I mean, where I'm currently at, I've been since 2012, and the next formal piece of homework that I give will be the first piece of formal homework that I give, right? So I'm not inundating my students with, here's what we're doing in class, and here's more stuff you can do at home related to this. I designed it all to be done in class so I can at least give them a chance to do and pursue anything else on their own time, right? So I'm very much in the, I don't have time for homework camp, but it's so kids can actually have some time. I know that students today don't get the same time. I mean, I'm trying to teach my own children. I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And the other day I bundled them up. I threw them out the back door, almost literally. And I said, don't come back in till I call you for dinner. Just, I don't care what you do in the backyard. Don't hit each other. Don't fight with each other. Just stay outside. And they're like, we want to watch the iPad. I'm like, no, just get the hell out of the house.
Yeah, I have some of the same problems. But all my kids know how to operate iPads and their Amazon Alexa in the house, and they can turn things on and turn things off, and it becomes, entertaining. But and again, giving them a little bit of, having them have that opportunity to learn how all this works. But it does become a little bit too comfortable sometimes.
Now, in the chat, you put this comment: outwit, outplay, outlast. What did you mean by that?
That was in Fancy Lancy was doing we learn, grow, and adapt. And in some cases, but both teachers and students, it's about playing a game, and they're playing a game to see what they can do. It's like Survivor. It's just cutthroat. Tell kids that they have an opportunity to win something, and they are going to some of them are going to act worse than they do on Survivor to make sure that they win. Like, we've got to, that's what you were mentioning from the, giving the kids time and opportunity. We've got to give them the ability to not view everything as I have to win and you have to lose situation.
Can you expand on that?
Sure. Let me see if I can come up with an interesting example. So one of the things I've seen at some of the schools I've been at have been students who, basically they have certain subjects that they like, but those classes are not an honors class, or they won't get advanced credit for it. So they won't take the classes because they can take a different class that is graded higher. It'll be just as hard or just as easy for them, potentially even easier. They want the GPA boost because the GPA boost will put them in a better position for college, and it'll get them to be able to be more competitive than their classmates, even though they have friends who want to be in those classes with them, and they both want to be computer scientists when they graduate, but some won't take the classes because it doesn't line up properly with a proper AP or, high honors GPA style. So they'll do everything they can to keep the GPA, but not take the classes that they're really interested in, so that they get into the better college and have the better experience, quote unquote, experience in high school, or join every club under the sun and try and be in as many officers and everything else. It's the quantity instead of quality argument. I want the best of the best of the best, sir.
And what that makes me think of is, I also do some work. I adjunct at the university level. So I work in the School of Communication at Rutgers University. And I often ask students at the beginning of any course, what problems do you want to solve? If I want to water that question down, the question is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. Mm-hmm. And I will ask young people that, who are in their late teens, early to mid 20s. And I get some adult learners as well. And so often what they want to do or the problem they want to solve in the world has nothing to do with what their major is. And depending on the student, I will push back and I will say, that's really noble, and what you want to change. And I don't get the answers like, oh, I want to solve hunger and, have world peace. Like, they come up with some like legit problems that they would love to solve. And I will push back and I say, well, then why is your major this? Why did you not choose a path that would let you do that? And when I do ask that question, they don't have an answer. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the answer is, And this is might be the worst answer of all. This is what my parents want me to do. You know, my parents are paying for my education, and they told me what to study. To which I say, well, one day you'll be off your parents' payroll. You know, but
Yeah.
you know,
No, I used
that's
to
what we
teach.
do.
I used to teach for skills too. I did a project management class for them a while back, and it was the same thing. So what do you want to? Why do you want to be a project manager? What do you want to run? What do you want to change? What do you want to build? What do you want to do? I want the promotion. Well, what is that promotion going to give you? More money. Okay. Are you what? Like, how are you going? Like, is this going to help you? And the part of the class was had to manage like multiple projects, and I always tried to push them to, okay, so your first project can be work related. Your second project has to be something that you want to do, that you're really interested in, that you want to change. How do you project manage, working with a nonprofit or doing volunteer work, or how do you give me a project that this gets, that that gets you passionate about it, as opposed to something you have to do for work.
Yeah, it's again, this is, there's a lot of systemic problems that we need to fix in society. Certainly, again, to go back to where I started tonight, we start to fix things in education, we'll start to see changes in society. And education, yeah, is broken. Is technology the answer for everything? No. Is technology something we need to fix? Yes. Again, to not to reset, but to sort of rewind and recap a little bit. But, the obstacles that are in the way of our teachers and our students, are there obstacles that prevent me from doing the things I'd like to do? Absolutely. Are there obstacles that then prevent students from doing what I'd like them to do, or the opportunities that not every student has? Yes. Again, it's like when you ask kids, how do we have world peace? And if you ask a bunch of kids how to fix the world, they're going to come up with some really good answers. The problem is kids don't have a way or that voice to really make that happen while they're kids, right? Kids don't think that kids should be bullied. All right. Kids don't think that people should be hungry. And yet in the world, we have all of these problems that exist.
You just reminded me the whole you ask a bunch of kids the world peace. I was visiting a school, and there's actually a thing called the World Peace Game, and it's meant for fourth graders and middle schoolers, and it is literally about setting up. And there's a guy who comes out and does basically the class on how to teach the teachers and then the kids, and is literally a week-long type project where you all take on a different country, and you literally have a game board that is the size of a room, and you have to get to world peace, and you have to solve your world's problems. And if I remember correctly, every group of kids gets there. It's just how fast they get there and what they do to get there, and they all get there by compromising. And like it's a great challenge to give kids. I'll put the link in the chat.
Please do, definitely.
Because I just looked it up again, I'm just making sure it's the same. Same thing I saw.
While you're digging that up, Fancy put in the chat. I'll pull that up here. Most of our students take the classes taught by the teachers they respect the most. Teachers they respect most focus on positive relationships. This often outweighs AP and important classes. I had this very conversation with my in-class support teacher today. We're getting ready to wrap up a marking period in a semester, and we're giving kids time here at the end to make up missing assignments and go back and revise work that maybe we wouldn't normally be able to have that time for, but we want them to do well. And a whole bunch of them in our Google Meet chat were like, you guys are the best teachers, thank you so much. Like, they were super appreciative. And after the fact, we were talking, we're like, for a lot of these kids, they're not going to remember the history. They're going to remember the relationship and how we made them feel. And that stemmed into a conversation with my wife today where, what are kids getting out of our education? And yes, relationships matter. Absolutely. Building rapport with your kids showing empathy, showing grace, showing compassion. And none of those things involve you being their friend, but being a mentor, being somebody they can count on. All right. That's what's going to be valuable for the kids. Why do you think, again, if I'll put the history teacher hat on, if we go back 100 years, you were set for life if you had like a 6th through 8th grade education. Okay. We have high school because we put child labor laws in place. And where are we going to put all these kids that aren't working in factories? Right? We're going to give them more education. So build those relationships. All right. Build a rapport, because think of your own experiences, right? Alex or anybody in the chat. We remember the people. I remember some specific lessons or some projects, but it's mostly I remember the people, and it works both ways, good and bad. I remember my really great teachers that I had great relationships with. And I also remember the ones who were not great people and great human beings, and as someone who is an educator now, I draw on what do I want to emulate and what do I never want to be. And to bring it back to technology, this has nothing to do with technology. This is just interacting with people. And Alex, you brought it up a little bit earlier, and I've talked in the past about the human element in education. More often than not, I harp on the fact that there's this divide between teachers and admin where you become an administrator and you kind of forget how to be a decent human being. Some people, there are a lot of good administrators out there, don't get me wrong, but it's all about relationships. Teachers to administrators, teachers to students. Hey, newsflash, we're all people, right?
Yep.
We're all people.
But it comes down to like Fancy mentioned before, it's about the culture that you set. If you don't set the right culture for that to happen, it changes things.
Yeah, culture trumps all. When I was doing my administrative certification, my big takeaway from the courses and all the money I paid, culture trumps everything. And I'm sorry to use one of those words. Culture matters. All right. That's what you need to put all your effort and your energy, all the eggs in the basket of culture. You create good culture, everything else will be much easier.
Yep.
There you go. Want to thank Sharo for checking in on the chat. Glad you are here. Your avatar is looking as good as ever. Thanks for popping in. Alex, I want to thank you for popping on. This is a fun conversation. I appreciate it because there's a reason I'm not on the radio by myself.
Believe me, I understand how hard it is. It's the same thing for Twitter chats, and it's the same thing for podcasts and everything. You sometimes just need that other voice to help keep things moving and make it interesting, and be able to take a breath every so often.
Yes, especially again, there's a reason I don't record the House of Ed Tech live. All right, so there's planning and preparation that goes into that, but I do love the joy of live. So it is a ton of fun.
Well, then we should encourage people to join to figure out, get invites to Clubhouse, since I think we're both going to be spending a lot more time over there.
Yes, sir. So I had 6 invites that I used on people. If I get more, if you know somebody, so Alex, you're on it, so I'm not talking to you right now, but if you're in the chat and you haven't heard of Clubhouse, start asking around, try to get yourself invited in there, because I think it's going to be a game changer. And there is a future episode of the House of Ed Tech that I'm working on where I'm going to lay it all out and what my grandmaster plan is on how it's going to change education. And maybe not specifically Clubhouse, but the ideas and skills we can get from something like Clubhouse. Because, I've done episodes on TikTok, and, TikTok could be gone tomorrow. But what are the skills that an app like that can give us that are going to enhance our practice and our personal development and our growth? Yeah, these things are fun, but we can also learn. And it's like time. Time flies when you're having fun. Time will also fly when you're learning. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But try to get yourselves onto Clubhouse. And when you're there, look for me. I am at Mr. Nessie. And Alex, what is your Clubhouse username?
It's all AJ Podchaski.
There you go.
Drop AJ Podchaski everywhere. Yep.
Drop it in the chat. And everybody, I'm going to borrow something from Clubhouse. If everybody could put in the chat, put your Twitter handle, put where people can connect with you professionally, because y'all had a great conversation and were providing so much value in the chat during this live stream. Connect with each other, continue these conversations, continue to do a little bit, that if we all do a little something, we're definitely going to add up to something big. All right. Again, so Alex, real quick, just verbally, how can people connect with you? Whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, how can people connect?
I'm basically, I have the same, I've been meticulous, same handle everywhere: Twitter, Clubhouse, Instagram, at AJ Podchaski. It's all in the chat now. Mostly on Twitter, mostly because of EdTech Chat, Monday nights at 8 p.m.
There you go. And again, I need to be more active there. It's like, that's like what I train for, right? EdTech.
well, we can have you as a guest moderator just to do podcasts.
I would love to. In all the years I've been on Twitter, I can count on one hand how many times I've moderated a Twitter chat.
It's fun because especially since we're going to start keeping the Clubhouse thing live at the same time. So
maybe that's where I'll jump in, because then it's audio and that's more my speed. Yep.
Well, we can pre-program the chat. That's what the behind the scenes for all the good chat people. We actually, just like you pre-plan a podcast, we pre-plan the chat, and it's automated so that everything goes off on a timer, and then we are free to interact with people throughout the chat.
And the other big hack is, when your questions are longer than 280 characters, just throw that question on a picture and tweet the picture out. That has to be my favorite hack. Yeah, well, it's my favorite part. Because then I can critique who's got the best graphics, and there's some good graphics out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we got some Twitter handles coming in, which I will promote here. So obviously, you want to follow at Fancy Lancy on the Twitter, and obviously follow Alex everywhere at AJ Podchaski. And we got Stephanie Scrocky checking in. She is at Scrocky_S, and Sharo Dickerson at Sharo Dickerson on Twitter. Alex, thank you for coming on here. I'm not going to make this any longer than it needs to be, but I will be back tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern to, I don't know that we really talked. Well,
we started on that FETC. We did start there.
We started there, and again, that's the joy of live. So tomorrow we will start with FETC, and we will see where the conversation takes us. So if you enjoyed this, bring a friend, and if you didn't enjoy it, well, my name's Joe. There you go. don't come back. But I will see you all tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern. And if you're not subscribed to the House of Ed Tech and you kind of like what I do here, it's better, if not the same, on the podcast. But you can go to chrisnessie.com/go, and the podcast is available anywhere you can listen to and find a podcast. And thanks for being here. Alex, I would say wave, but we can't see you, but pretend you're waving and we'll wave goodbye, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.